You keep thinking I don't see it. That little private collapse you perform when the lights go out and there's no one left to impress, no one left to charm, no one left to convince. You smooth your face in the mirror like you can iron out what you did, what you didn't do, what you promised yourself you'd do and then quietly traded for comfort, for noise, for one more harmless little distraction that somehow always turns into hours. You call it just a break. You call it self-care. You call it, I'll start tomorrow. And you say it with that soft voice, like you're trying not to wake the part of you that already knows you're lying. You know what's funny? You're not even lying to the world most of the time. You're lying to the only person who can't walk away from you. You're lying to you. And you've gotten so skilled at it that you can feel guilt without changing anything, feel shame without learning anything, feel regret without building anything. You can suffer and still stay the same. That's a talent, you know, a very expensive talent. You've paid for it with mornings you never got back, with energy you drained into people who never earned it, with attention you donated to screens that never loved you, with 1,000 tiny withdrawals from your future until your future started to look at you like a stranger. And the worst part, the part you don't say out loud, is that you've started to believe you're the kind of person who always almost does it, always almost changes, always almost becomes disciplined, always almost becomes reliable, always almost becomes proud. Almost is where you hide. Almost is where you stay safe. Almost is where your potential rots politely without making a mess. You don't need me to tell you that you're tired. You can feel it in the way you wake up and already want to quit the day you haven't even started. You can feel it in the way you reach for your phone before you reach for your own mind. You can feel it in the way you talk to yourself, like a manager who's lost faith in an employee but still needs them to clock in. You can feel it in the way your laughter sounds thinner lately, like you're trying to keep the room bright so nobody notices the storm in the basement. And you want someone to come in and rescue you from the quiet consequences of your choices, not with a miracle, with permission. You want someone to tell you it's understandable, that you're allowed, that you've been through a lot, that you deserve a break. And you do deserve rest, but you don't deserve the lie you've been feeding yourself, that rest is what you're doing when you sabotage your own life with small pleasures that don't even satisfy you. That's not rest. That's avoidance wearing a bathrobe. That's you running from the discomfort of becoming who you said you would be, because becoming requires friction, and friction has a way of revealing what you're made of. You're scared of that reveal. You're scared to find out you're ordinary. You're scared to find out you're not as special as you were when you were just potential. Potential is glamorous. Potential is clean. Potential doesn't sweat. Potential doesn't fail publicly. Potential doesn't have to sit in a chair at 2:13 a.m. staring at a glowing rectangle, swallowing the bitter taste of another day spent almost. Look at me. Don't drift. You're not here for comfort. You're here because something in you is starving for truth, And you've been trying to feed it with entertainment, with scrolling, with opinions, with other people's lives, and it keeps getting hungrier. You keep telling yourself you're behind, and then you treat your attention like it's worthless. You keep telling yourself you want focus, and then you hand your mind to anything that jingles. You keep telling yourself you want discipline, and then you wait for motivation like it's a bus that's supposed to arrive on schedule. Motivation doesn't arrive on schedule. Motivation is a mood. Discipline is a decision. And you've been living your life as if moods are kings and decisions are peasants, as if your feelings get the final vote, as if the weather inside your chest should dictate the architecture of your days. You say, "I don't feel like it," and you let that sentence rule you. You let it take your work ethic hostage. You let it take your future hostage. You let it take your self-respect hostage. Self-respect isn't a compliment you give yourself in the mirror. Self-respect is what you do when nobody is watching and you still keep the promise. You've been waiting for an audience to become consistent, but consistency doesn't perform. Consistency repeats. It's quiet. It's boring. It's the same glass of water every day. It's the same hour of deep work when your mind begs for novelty. It's the same sleep schedule when your impulses want chaos. It's the same training of your attention back to the task when the world offers you endless little exits. You want to feel powerful? Stop making your life depend on how you feel. The day you can do the right thing without the emotional fireworks is the day you stop being easy to manipulate. By people, by trends, by your own cravings. And don't pretend you're not being manipulated. You are. You're being trained. That device in your hand, it doesn't just show you things. It shapes you. It teaches you to crave quick reward, quick validation, quick outrage, quick comfort, quick entertainment. It teaches you to need a new hit of novelty every few seconds, like your mind is a dog being tossed treats. It teaches you to abandon your own thoughts the moment they get slightly uncomfortable, slightly slow, slightly demanding. It teaches you to confuse stimulation with living. And then you wonder why you can't sit still long enough to build anything real. You wonder why your goals feel heavy. You wonder why your attention feels shattered. Your attention isn't broken by accident. It was rented out, one small click at a time. You signed the contract with your thumb. And yes, I know, everyone does it. Everyone's tired, everyone's busy, everyone's got a reason. That's the point. The crowd will always give you a reason. The crowd is an endless factory of excuses. If you want to build a different life, you're going to have to be the kind of person who can hear the excuse and still choose the action. Because your life is not built by the days you feel inspired. Your life is built by the days you feel nothing and still move. Your life is built by the days you feel irritated and still stay calm. Your life is built by the days you feel lonely and still keep your routine. Your life is built by the days you feel underestimated and still do excellent work without applause. And you hate that, don't you? You hate how ordinary the path is. You want a dramatic turning point. You want lightning. You want a speech. You want a moment where everything clicks and suddenly you become the person you admire. It doesn't happen like that. It happens like dust collecting. It happens like bricks laid. It happens like 1,000 tiny choices that look meaningless until one day you turn around and realize you are standing inside a life you actually respect. But you don't want to wait. You want the result without the repetition. You want the confidence without the practice. You want the calm without the self-control. You want the leadership without the responsibility. And you know what leadership is? It's not a title. It's not charisma. It's not being loud. Leadership is self-governance. Leadership is being the person who doesn't need to be rescued from their own habits. Leadership is being the person who can take a hit to their ego without taking it out on everyone around them. Leadership is being the person who can be disappointed without becoming bitter. Leadership is being the person who can be tired without becoming careless. Leadership is being the person who can be angry without becoming reckless. Leadership is the discipline to respond instead of react, to pause instead of explode, to listen instead of perform. And you have a temper, don't you? Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind. The kind that simmers under your ribs when someone disrespects you, when someone ignores you, when someone takes credit, when someone moves on without you. You tell yourself you're fine, you swallow it, and then it leaks out later in sarcasm, in coldness, in distance, in a tone that says, "I'm above this," when really you're hurt. Hurt isn't shameful. Hurt is information. But when you refuse to handle it with maturity, it becomes poison. It becomes the reason you sabotage meetings, sabotage relationships, sabotage opportunities, sabotage your own momentum. You think your anger makes you strong. It doesn't. It makes you predictable. People can pull your strings with one careless comment. Your mood becomes a remote control in someone else's pocket, and you call that passion. No. Passion is what you put into your craft when nobody claps. Passion is what you put into the boring part of the process. Anger is just energy without direction. If you want to be dangerous in the best way, the way that builds, the way that creates, the way that endures, you learn to take that energy and aim it at the work. You learn to take the sting of betrayal and turn it into structure. You learn to take the loneliness and turn it into hours of focus. You learn to take the regret and turn it into boundaries. You learn to take the shame and turn it into standards. You don't need to punish yourself. You need to train yourself. There's a difference. Punishment is emotional. Training is practical. Punishment says you're bad. Training says you're unskilled and you can become skilled. Punishment keeps you stuck in feelings. Training moves you into actions. You're not here to drown in your past. You're here to build a future that makes your past useful. Stay here. You've been betrayed in small ways, not always by villains, sometimes by friends who disappeared when your life got messy, sometimes by family who misunderstood you and called it laziness when it was confusion, sometimes by coworkers who smiled and then undermined you, sometimes by someone you loved who took your devotion like it was a free sample and never paid for it with respect. And that hurt did something to you. It made you cautious. It made you suspicious. It made you withdraw. It made you think, if I don't care, I can't be disappointed. So you stopped caring in public. You started pretending you were unaffected. You started acting like nothing matters. You started calling it being chill. But you're not chill. You're guarded. You're tired of hoping. You're tired of being the one who tries. You're tired of being the one who shows up. So you lower your expectations and call it wisdom. You tell yourself you're realistic. You tell yourself you're protecting your peace. Meanwhile, your standards for yourself quietly collapse. You stop expecting greatness from you. That's not peace. That's surrender in a nice outfit. And I'm not here to shame you for it. I'm here to strip it down until you can see it. Because you can't fix what you refuse to name. Here's the name. You've been letting disappointment become identity. You've been letting your worst days define your self-image. You've been letting your failures become prophecy. You say, I always do this, like it's a law of nature, like it's gravity, like it's unchangeable. But it's not a law, it's a habit. And habits can be rebuilt. Not with drama, with design. You're going to design your days like you actually live in them, not like you're a visitor, not like you're waiting to start later. You're going to design your morning so it doesn't begin with chaos, not because mornings are magical, but because beginnings are fragile. The first hour of your day is a vote. You wake up and you cast it. You vote for discipline or you vote for drift. You vote for focus or you vote for noise. You vote for the person you said you'd become or you vote for the person you've been settling for. And you've been voting against yourself and then acting surprised at the results. Enough. You want deep focus? Then you treat your attention like a resource, not a toy. You want productivity? Then you stop pretending productivity is a personality trait and start treating it like a system. You want career growth? Then you stop waiting for confidence and start collecting evidence. Confidence is evidence. Evidence is work done. Work done is time protected. Time protected is boundaries enforced. Boundaries enforced is discomfort tolerated. It all comes back to the same thing. Can you tolerate discomfort without escaping? Because the moment your mind feels friction, you reach for an exit. You reach for entertainment. You reach for a snack. You reach for a message. You reach for anything that says, not now. And your life keeps hearing, not now. Your goals keep hearing, not now. Your future keeps hearing, not now. And one day, not now becomes never. And you'll sit there with your hands full of excuses and no life to show for them. I'm not threatening you. I'm describing time. Time is the only thing that doesn't negotiate. Time does not care that you had potential. Time does not care that you were hurt. Time does not care that you were misunderstood. Time does not care that you were tired. Time will pass with or without your discipline. So you make a decision. You stop giving your best hours to your worst habits. You stop giving your sharpest attention to your emptiest distractions. You stop letting your phone be the first voice you hear in the morning. You let your own mind speak first. And yes, it will be messy at first. Your mind will complain. Your impulses will beg. You will feel restless. Good. That restlessness is proof you've been overstimulated. That restlessness is the withdrawal from constant novelty. You don't need a diagnosis. You need a detox of behavior. You need to practice sitting with silence. Silence is not empty. Silence is where you hear yourself. And you've been avoiding yourself. You've been avoiding the conversations you need to have with you, the one where you admit you've been inconsistent, the one where you admit you've been blaming circumstances, the one where you admit you've been seeking validation because you don't trust your own standards. Your standards have been outsourced. That's why you feel lost. You check likes, you check views, you check what people are doing, you check what people think, and then you wonder why your inner compass spins like it's broken. It's not broken. It's just being drowned out by noise. Noise is profitable for someone, not for you. For you, noise is expensive. It costs you focus. It costs you sleep. It costs you patience. It costs you creativity. It costs you depth. And depth is what makes you valuable, not as a product, as a person. Depth is what makes your work excellent. Depth is what makes your presence calm. Depth is what makes your leadership steady. Depth is what makes your relationships real. But depth requires you to stop skimming life like it's a feed. Look at me. Don't drift. You're going to learn to do one thing at a time again. That sounds silly, doesn't it? Like a child's lesson. But you've trained yourself into fragmentation. You've trained your mind to open 12 tabs and finish none. You've trained your attention to bounce and bounce and bounce until you can't remember what you were even trying to do. You call it multitasking. It's not. It's self-interruption. It's you tearing your own momentum into scraps. Momentum is delicate. Momentum is built with unbroken time. You don't need more hours. You need fewer leaks. You plug the leaks and suddenly your day feels twice as long. The leak is that reflex. Check, check, check. Like your life depends on new information. Most of it is useless. Most of it will not matter tomorrow. But your habits will matter tomorrow. Your discipline will matter tomorrow. The work you complete will matter tomorrow. So you choose. You set a window for communication and you respect it. You set a window for deep work and you defend it. You set a window for rest and you honor it. You don't wing your day and then act surprised when it turns into chaos. A disciplined life is not a strict life. It's a deliberate life. It's you deciding in advance what deserves your energy. Because if you don't decide, the world decides for you. And the world will decide you should be distracted. Because distracted people are easier to sell to, easier to sway, easier to herd. You want to feel like you own yourself? Start by owning your morning. Start by making your bed if that's your ritual. Start by drinking water like you respect your body. Start by moving your body a little so your mind wakes up. Start by looking at your goals for 2 minutes so you remember what matters. Start by writing down the one thing that would make today feel earned. One thing, not 20. Your mind loves to create a massive list so you can fail and then feel justified in quitting. Stop feeding that habit. Pick one meaningful target. Give it a time block. Remove distractions. Begin. Beginning is the hardest part because beginning is where you face the truth. You might not be instantly good. You might not feel confident. You might not feel ready. So what? Ready is a feeling. Prepared is a practice. You prepare by showing up. You prepare by doing the work badly at first, and then less badly, and then better. You want mastery? Then you stop being allergic to being a beginner. Pride keeps you stuck. Humility makes you trainable. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. Humility is being honest about what you need to learn and then learning it without drama. And yes, you've failed before. You've messed up. You've disappointed people. You've wasted opportunities. You've made choices you wish you could rewind. Welcome to being human. But here's the line you need to tattoo onto your mind. Your past is not a life sentence. It's a lesson plan. If you treat it like a life sentence, you stay trapped in guilt. If you treat it like a lesson plan, you extract the wisdom and build. And building is what you're here for. You're here to rebuild your career, rebuild your reputation, rebuild your self-respect, brick by brick, habit by habit. And rebuilding after failure isn't glamorous. It's quiet. It's showing up when nobody expects you to. It's doing small tasks with excellence, even when you feel embarrassed. It's being early. It's being prepared. It's following through. It's apologizing when you're wrong without turning it into a performance. It's taking feedback without collapsing. It's being consistent long enough that your new pattern becomes your identity. Identity is not what you claim in a bio. Identity is what your calendar proves. Your calendar is your confession. It tells the truth about what you worship with your time. So look at your calendar. If it's chaos, your life feels chaotic. If it's empty, your life feels empty. If it's filled with noise, your mind feels noisy. If it's filled with deliberate blocks of meaningful work, your mind starts to trust you. Trust is built the same way with yourself as with anyone else. You keep your word. You keep your word even when it's inconvenient. You keep your word even when you're not in the mood. You keep your word even when nobody knows. Especially when nobody knows. That's where integrity lives. Integrity is what you do in secret. And you've been living in secret lately, haven't you? Secretly disappointed, secretly ashamed, secretly lonely. You've smiled through meetings and then felt empty afterward. You've been surrounded and still felt isolated. You've been praised and still felt like a fraud. You've been loved and still felt like you might be abandoned. So you cling, or you detach, or you pretend, or you distract, but you never just sit with the feeling and say, this is here. I can handle it without letting it drive. Emotional regulation is not suppression, it's leadership. It's you saying, I will not let this emotion steer my decisions. You don't deny it, you don't dramatize it, you acknowledge it and choose your response. And if you're thinking, that sounds impossible, that's because you've been practicing the opposite. You've been practicing reacting. You've been practicing venting. You've been practicing rumination. You've been practicing turning one bad moment into a bad day by feeding it with stories. The story is the fuel. You can feel angry and still be respectful. You can feel hurt and still be steady. You can feel anxious and still take the next small step. You can feel lonely and still keep your routine. You can feel tired and still do the essential. And when you truly need rest, you rest like a disciplined person rests, intentionally, without guilt, without escape, without the fog. Rest isn't scrolling until your eyes hurt. Rest isn't staying up late chasing another clip, another thread, another argument you'll forget tomorrow. Rest is recovery. Rest is closing the day with dignity. Rest is preparing tomorrow. Rest is sleeping on purpose. And don't twist this into some kind of obsession. I'm not telling you to become a machine. I'm telling you to become dependable. There's a difference. A machine runs without feeling. A dependable person feels and still follows through. A dependable person doesn't make promises while emotional and break them while bored. A dependable person knows that the best version of them is built in repetition, not in intensity. Intensity is cheap. Consistency is expensive. Consistency costs you comfort. Consistency costs you excuses. Consistency costs you the right to say, I'm just not feeling it. And you want to keep that right. You want to keep your escape hatch. Because if you remove the escape hatch, then you're accountable. Accountable to your goals, accountable to your family, accountable to your future team, your future partner, your future self. Accountability feels heavy when you've been living light, but weight is how you build strength. You don't get strong by avoiding weight. You get strong by carrying it with proper form. Proper form is structure. Structure is not prison. Structure is freedom. Without structure, your impulses run your day. With structure, your values run your day. And your values, listen to me, your values are not what you say you believe when you're inspired. Your values are what you do when you're tempted. Your values are what you choose when nobody rewards you immediately. Delayed gratification is a kind of nobility. It's you planting seeds and not digging them up every morning to check if they're growing. You've been digging up your own seeds. You start a habit for 3 days and then quit because you didn't feel transformed. You do a project for a week and then abandon it because you didn't get praise. You learn for 2 sessions and then stop because you didn't feel like an expert. That impatience is not your personality, it's your conditioning. You've been trained by instant feedback to expect immediate payoff. Real life doesn't pay like that. Real life pays in compound, and compound is invisible at first. That's why so many people quit. They can't tolerate the invisible phase. They can't tolerate being uncelebrated. They can't tolerate being bored. They can't tolerate being alone with effort. But you can. You're not the fragile person you've been acting like. You're not the helpless person you've been narrating yourself as. You're not a victim of every mood. You're a person who has been untrained. So we train you again. We train your mornings. We train your evenings. We train your attention. We train your reactions. We train your words. We train your follow-through. We train your patience. And we do it without drama. I know you want a dramatic redemption arc. I know you want a moment where you finally prove everyone wrong. But I'm going to tell you something colder than revenge and more powerful than applause. The greatest proof is quiet consistency. The greatest victory is being able to look at yourself at the end of the day and say, I did what I said. Not perfectly, honestly. You did the important thing. You showed up. You kept your word. You respected your time. You didn't feed the distractions. You didn't let your anger write your emails. You didn't let your frustration poison your voice. You didn't let your loneliness make you beg for attention from people who don't value you. You didn't let your fatigue become an excuse to abandon your standards. You did the simple, hard thing. And then you went to sleep on time. Not because you're old, not because you're boring, but because you're building something that requires a stable mind. Sleep is discipline. Sleep is you closing the door on the day instead of letting the day bleed into the night. Sleep is you saying, I am not available to my impulses at midnight. You don't need to turn your nights into chaos to prove you're alive. You don't need to grind yourself into dust to prove you're serious. Recovery is part of responsibility. Recovery is not laziness. Recovery is strategy. It's how you keep your mind sharp. It's how you keep your temper steady. It's how you keep your energy consistent. It's how you avoid living like a candle that burns bright for 2 days and then disappears. You've been disappearing in small ways. You disappear into distractions. You disappear into excuses. You disappear into the background of your own life. No more. You're going to become visible to yourself first. You're going to stop abandoning you. And yes, It's going to feel strange, because you've been living with a kind of internal betrayal. You make a promise in the morning, and you break it at night. You say, "Tomorrow I'll start," and then tomorrow you say it again. That cycle erodes trust. That cycle creates that numbness you feel, that low-grade disappointment you carry around like a coat. But trust can be rebuilt. You rebuild it with small promises kept. Not huge vows, not cinematic declarations. Small promises like, "I will work for 20 minutes without checking anything. I will walk for 10 minutes. I will write 1 page. I will clean this 1 space. I will prepare for tomorrow for 5 minutes. I will breathe before I reply. I will go to bed at a decent hour." You keep those small promises, and your nervous system starts to relax because it finally has a leader. And that leader is you. You don't need someone to save you. You need you to stop leaving. Look at me. Don't drift. The loneliness you carry, let's talk about it without turning it into poetry. It's not romantic. It's not beautiful. It's heavy. It's the ache you feel when you're surrounded and still feel unseen. It's the quiet panic when you think, "Is this all there is?" It's the fear that your best years are slipping away and nobody even noticed. It's the feeling that you're behind some invisible schedule that everyone else got a copy of. And because you don't want to feel that ache, you reach for noise. You reach for anything to fill the air. But loneliness is not solved by noise. It's solved by meaning. Meaning is built through responsibility. Responsibility is not a burden someone dumps on you. It's the weight you choose because it gives your life shape. When you take responsibility for your day, you stop feeling like life is happening to you. When you take responsibility for your habits, you stop feeling like you're at the mercy of your moods. When you take responsibility for your growth, you stop envying people who are consistent because you become one of them. Envy is not evil, it's a signal. It shows you what you want. But if you stare at envy too long, it turns into bitterness. And bitterness will poison your work, your relationships, your reputation. So you take the signal and you move. You don't scroll someone else's life and then punish your own with inaction. You use their discipline as a mirror, not as a weapon. You say, "If it's possible for a human, it's possible for me with time." Not guaranteed, not easy, but possible. And then you do the boring part. You build. You build your skill. You build your portfolio. You build your reputation through reliability. You build your body through consistent movement. You build your mind through reading and deep focus. You build your character through restraint. Restraint is power. You've been chasing power in the wrong places, through being right, through being noticed, through being witty, through being admired. Real power is being able to sit with discomfort and still choose wisely. Real power is the pause between impulse and action. In that pause, you decide what kind of person you are. And if you want to grow in your career, you learn to be the person who can deliver without drama. You learn to be the person who communicates clearly. You learn to be the person who doesn't vanish when things get hard. You learn to be the person who can take ownership when something goes wrong. Ownership is rare. Ownership is expensive. Ownership is high value. People trust owners. People promote owners. People collaborate with owners. But ownership starts in private. It starts with you owning your time, owning your schedule, owning your inputs, owning your reactions, owning your mistakes, owning your learning. You want to rebuild after failure? Then you stop hiding. Not in the sense of confessing your life to everyone, in the sense of not hiding from the work. You don't avoid the email. You don't avoid the call. You don't avoid the uncomfortable task. You face it calmly, respectfully, and you do what needs to be done. You think strength is loud. It isn't. Strength is quiet, steady action. Strength is not needing to prove yourself every day. Strength is not needing to win every argument. Strength is not needing to punish people with silence. Strength is being stable. And stability is built with routines. Routines are not chains, they're rails. They keep you moving when motivation disappears. They keep you moving when emotions rise. They keep you moving when life gets messy. And life will get messy. You can't control the storms outside you, but you can control the structure inside you. And that structure is built by daily commitments that are so small you can't argue with them, so consistent they become automatic, so honest they become your identity. The identity you've been craving, it's waiting on the other side of consistency. You keep asking, who am I? As if identity is a philosophical answer. Identity is behavior repeated. Identity is the choices you keep making. Identity is the standards you refuse to lower. You can decide your identity, not by announcing it, by practicing it. You practice being disciplined. You practice being focused. You practice being patient. You practice being responsible. You practice being calm under pressure. You practice being kind without being weak. You practice being firm without being cruel. You practice being humble without shrinking. You practice. And the practice is not exciting. That's why it works. Because it's not built on emotion, it's built on commitment. Commitment is what you do when you don't feel like it. That's the whole secret. That's the thing everyone tries to avoid and then wonders why nothing changes. Your feelings are not a reliable guide to your priorities. Your actions are. So we change the actions. We change the environment. We change the triggers. We change the default. You remove the easy distractions. You put the important work where it's visible. You make the right thing the easy thing. You make the wrong thing inconvenient. You don't rely on willpower alone. Willpower is a battery, and you've been draining it on nonsense. You design your day so willpower is used for the meaningful choices, not for resisting constant temptations. You set boundaries. You say no. You stop being available to everyone's urgency. You stop letting other people's chaos become your schedule. You stop overcommitting to prove you're valuable. You become valuable by delivering, not by saying yes. You become respected by having standards, not by being endlessly accommodating. And yes, Some people will not like the new you. Some people benefited from the old you, the distracted you, the inconsistent you, the apologetic you. They liked you because you were easy. They liked you because you were controllable. When you become disciplined, you become less controllable. When you become focused, you become less available. When you become calm, you become harder to provoke. And that will frustrate people who enjoyed your reactions. Let them be frustrated. You're not here to entertain them with your instability. You're here to build a life that you can carry. A life that your future family can lean on. A life that your future team can trust. A life that your future self can respect. You've spent enough time being a question mark. It's time to become a period, a full stop, a decision, a standard, a person who does not negotiate with their lower impulses every day like it's a courtroom drama. You decide once, and then you follow through. You decide the bedtime, and you follow through. You decide the work block, and you follow through. You decide the boundaries, and you follow through. You decide the tone you will use, and you follow through. You decide you will not. Speak when you're heated, and you follow through. You decide you will address problems directly and respectfully, and you follow through. This is maturity. This is leadership. This is discipline. And discipline is not punishment. Discipline is love. Not the soft, sentimental kind, the serious kind. The kind that says, I care enough about you to demand better from you. You've been gentle with your excuses and harsh with your heart. Flip it. Be harsh with the excuses. Be gentle with the learning. You will mess up. You will have days where you drift. You will have moments where you slip. That does not mean you are back to zero. That means you are human and you return. You return without self-hatred. You return without drama. You return like a professional. Professionals return to the work. Professionals don't spiral for a week because they had one imperfect day. Professionals don't quit because they felt discouraged. Professionals don't let one setback become a story about who they are. They adjust, they learn, they continue. You want to be a professional in your life? Then you stop acting like your emotions are emergencies. Most emotions are weather. They pass. You don't rebuild your house every time it rains. You don't set your goals on fire because you had a bad afternoon. You don't destroy your progress because you were tempted. You notice the temptation, you breathe, you choose the next right thing, and then you move on. This is how you reclaim your attention. This is how you reclaim your future. This is how you stop being at war with yourself. Not with a dramatic truce, but with daily order. Order isn't boring when you've lived in chaos. Order is relief. Order is self-respect. Order is the quiet pride that settles in your chest when you realize you didn't need to be saved. You needed to be steady. One more truth. You've been waiting for someone to understand you deeply enough that you finally feel seen, and then you'll change. That's backwards. You change, and then you become someone you can see. You become someone you can respect. And when you respect yourself, you stop begging for validation like it's oxygen. You still appreciate encouragement. You still enjoy connection, but you're not starving. You're not desperate. You're not fragile. You don't collapse when someone doesn't reply. You don't crumble when someone criticizes you. You don't chase when someone pulls away. You don't perform to earn love. You become grounded. Grounded people are magnetic, not because they're perfect, but because they're stable. Stability is rare. Stability is calming. Stability is leadership. And you can be stable, even with your past, even with your scars, even with your disappointments. You can be stable because stability is a practice, not a personality. And it begins tonight. Not Monday, not next month, tonight. Tonight, you close the loops you've been leaving open. Tonight, you prepare your environment so tomorrow has fewer traps. Tonight, you choose one small promise and you keep it. Tonight, you go to bed with dignity, not with a screen glowing into your face like a tiny theater of other people's lives. Tonight, you let your mind cool down. Tonight, you let your body rest. Tonight, you decide you are done being the person who disappears into distractions and wakes up empty. And tomorrow, when the morning comes and your mind tries to bargain, tries to whisper, just 5 minutes, tries to pull you back into the familiar drift, you will remember this feeling, the feeling of being tired of your own excuses, and you will stand up anyway, and you will begin anyway, and you will do the work anyway, and you will become someone you can finally trust, someone who doesn't need constant rescue, someone who can endure discomfort without breaking, someone who can be alone without unraveling, someone who can be hurt without becoming cruel, someone who can be challenged without becoming defensive, someone who can fail without quitting, someone who can succeed without becoming arrogant, someone who can lead without needing applause, someone who can build a life so steady that even your darkest thoughts have nowhere to hook, because your days are filled with structure, your attention is guarded, your habits are deliberate, your standards are clear, your patience is practiced, your gratitude is real, your purpose is long-term, and your mind finally stops running in circles and starts moving forward, one honest hour at a time, one disciplined choice at a time, one quiet act of self-respect at a time, until the old you becomes a story you tell without shame, because it taught you how to stop drifting and start steering. And you'll feel it in the simplest moment. The moment you sit down to work and your hands don't reach for the easy escape, because you've trained them. You've trained your mind. You've trained your cravings. You've trained your reactions. You've trained your life. And now the silence doesn't scare you anymore. It supports you. It holds you. It becomes the space where you build what you said you wanted. And you keep building, even when it's slow, even when it's hard, even when nobody notices, because you notice. Because you're finally awake. Because you're finally honest. Because you're finally done with almost. Because you're finally ready to live like your time matters, and you do not need to shout to prove it. You just need to keep going, and you will keep going. And when the day tries to steal you back with little temptations and cheap comforts and endless noise, you will look straight at it, and you will choose the deeper thing, the harder thing, the better thing, again and again and again, until it becomes normal, until discipline becomes your default, until focus feels natural, until responsibility feels like strength instead of weight, until your emotions become signals instead of chains, until your attention becomes yours again. And you realize, quietly, without fireworks, that you were never broken beyond repair. You were just unguarded, untrained, and tired. And now you're not asking the world to be softer. You're becoming stronger, steadier, calmer, clearer. And you don't need anyone to believe in you for you to do it. You just need to stop abandoning yourself right now and stay here and keep going and keep going and keep going. Because this is what your life has been asking for every time you felt that ache of regret in your chest and didn't know what to do with it. And now you do. You do the work. You do the next small, disciplined thing, and you let the days stack, and you let the habits harden, and you let the results grow slowly like roots in the dark. And you don't dig them up, you don't panic, you don't perform, you don't drift. You just build and build and build until silence becomes strength, and strength becomes peace, and peace becomes the way you walk through the world. And you don't need to be saved because you finally learned how to lead you. And you will not look away from that responsibility anymore. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not when it's inconvenient, not when it's lonely, not when it's boring, not when it's slow. Because you're done living like your future is optional, and you are ready, quietly, steadily, to become the person you've been waiting for. And you start by taking your attention back, by taking your time back, by taking your word back, by taking your life back. And you do it without drama, without noise, without excuses, with calm hands and a clear mind and a steady heart. And you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going. Because you know what happens if you don't. And you are finally tired of paying that price. So you choose the other cost, the cost of discipline, the cost of patience, the cost of consistency. And you pay it gladly, because it buys you something you've been missing for a long time: respect for yourself. And that respect is the foundation. And on that foundation, you will build the rest, slowly, deliberately, relentlessly, until the old cycle breaks and the new one holds. And you stop hoping for a different life, and you start producing it. One ordinary, powerful decision at a time. And you don't drift. You don't drift. You don't drift. You stay here. You stay here. You stay here. And you keep going. And you keep going. And you keep going. You keep going even when the room is quiet and the old habits start whispering like old friends who always show up when you're tired, when you're alone, when your guard is low, when your mind tries to sell you the same familiar deal. Comfort now, consequences later. That deal has been your most loyal companion, hasn't it? It never misses an appointment. It shows up the moment you feel the tiniest pinch of effort, the moment you feel the first sting of boredom, the moment you feel the first drop of fear. And it says, so gently, so sweetly, why not later? And you've been saying yes like it's polite, like it's harmless, like it's just one more time. But every later is a brick too. Not in a wall you can admire, but in a distance you'll have to cross. Later is the gap between who you are and who you could have been. Later is the silent theft. Later is how dreams die without any dramatic tragedy, just a slow fading, like a song left playing in another room until you can't hear it anymore. Stay with me. You want a different life, but you keep trying to build it with the same mind that keeps escaping, the same hands that keep reaching for the easy exit, the same tongue that keeps excusing the drift. And you're surprised the structure keeps collapsing. Of course it does. You can't build discipline on top of self-betrayal. You can't build focus on top of constant self-interruption. You can't build self-respect on top of promises you don't keep. That's not punishment, that's just reality. Reality is patient. Reality waits. Reality doesn't argue. Reality doesn't shout. Reality just returns the result of your patterns, again and again, until you finally stop blaming the mirror for what it reflects. So you stop bargaining. You stop negotiating with the part of you that wants the easy way out. You stop giving that part a microphone. You let it speak, sure, because it will speak, it always will. But you don't let it decide. Decision belongs to the part of you that wants to live with dignity. Decision belongs to the part of you that wants to feel proud without needing applause. Decision belongs to the part of you that wants to stand in front of your own life and not flinch. That's the part I'm talking to. The other part, the slippery part that loves comfort more than truth, that part can sit in the corner and sulk. It can complain. It can whine. It can bring you cravings and excuses like gifts. Let it. You don't have to accept them. Because you're not a child. You're not a leaf blown by every mood. You are a grown person with agency, with responsibility, with the ability to choose a hard thing for a good reason. And that ability is the foundation of everything. Career, relationships, leadership, inner peace. Without that ability, you're just reacting, just drifting, just surviving. You survived long enough. Now you build. And building has a rhythm. It has a tempo. It has a way of asking you the same question every day. Will you do the basic thing, even when it's boring? Will you do the basic thing, even when you feel behind? Will you do the basic thing, even when nobody is praising you? That's the test. Not the dramatic crisis, not the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The basic thing, repeated when nobody cares. That's where your character is formed. Character is forged in the ordinary. Character is in the way you get up when you want to stay down. Character is in the way you speak when you're frustrated. Character is in the way you treat your time when you're alone. Character is in the way you return to the work when you'd rather escape. And don't pretend you don't escape. You escape into planning that never becomes action. You escape into learning that never becomes practice. You escape into opinions that never become skill. You escape into endless preparation, endless consumption, endless research, as if information will save you from effort. Information doesn't save you. Execution saves you. Repetition saves you. Humility saves you. You can watch 1,000 videos about focus and still be distracted. You can read 1,000 posts about habits and still be inconsistent. You can listen to 100 speeches about discipline and still crumble the moment it gets inconvenient. Because discipline is not entertainment. Discipline is not inspiration. Discipline is a contract you sign with your future and honor with your present. And your present has been acting like your future doesn't exist. You've been acting like consequences are a rumor. They're not. Consequences are faithful. They arrive. Sometimes gently, sometimes quietly, but they arrive. And you can choose your consequences. That's the part nobody talks about. You can choose the consequence of discomfort now, or you can choose the consequence of regret later. You can choose the consequence of saying no to a distraction, or you can choose the consequence of another day lost. You can choose the consequence of sleeping at a decent hour, or you can choose the consequence of waking up foggy and irritable and calling it your personality. You can choose. That is power. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that makes you unshakable because you're not at the mercy of impulse anymore. Look at me. Don't drift. Let's talk about your identity, because you keep wearing a mask you don't even like. You walk around trying to be easygoing, trying to be fun, trying to be nice, trying to be low maintenance, trying to be whatever you think will keep people from leaving. You do it so automatically you don't even notice. You laugh at things you don't find funny. You say you're fine when you're not. You agree when you don't agree. You shrink your needs until you can't feel them. And then you go home and you feel this sour emptiness, like you've been renting yourself out all day and forgot to come back. That emptiness doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're divided. Part of you is performing. Part of you is pleading. Part of you is angry. Part of you is ashamed. Part of you is tired. And you're trying to keep them all quiet by feeding them distractions, but a divided person can't focus. A divided person can't commit. A divided person can't lead. So you unify. You unify by deciding what you stand for and then living it in small ways every day. You decide what you value, not as a slogan, not as a social media caption, not as something that sounds impressive, as a real standard. You value truth, so you stop lying to yourself about your time. You value responsibility, so you stop blaming your environment for every weakness and start shaping it. You value patience, so you stop demanding instant results and start trusting the process. You value gratitude, so you stop treating your life like it's only real when it's perfect and start seeing the goodness that already exists in it. Gratitude is not denial. Gratitude is perspective. Gratitude is seeing what's working while you work on what's not. Gratitude is what keeps discipline from turning into bitterness. Because if you train without gratitude, you become harsh. You become brittle. You become the kind of person who achieves things and still feels empty. That's not the goal. The goal is not to become impressive and hollow. The goal is to become solid. Solid is calm. Solid is steady. Solid is reliable. Solid is kind without being weak. Solid is firm without being cruel. Solid is patient under pressure. Solid is the kind of person who can build a career and still have a soul. And yes, you want career growth. You want to be taken seriously. You want to feel competent. You want to feel respected. But you keep trying to get respect through intensity, through bursts of effort, through last-minute panic, through occasional brilliance. Occasional brilliance is not a strategy. It's a gamble. The world respects consistency. The world trusts consistency. The world rewards the person who shows up prepared day after day, even when nobody is cheering. So you become that person. Not to prove anything to anyone else, but because your future depends on it. You want to rebuild after failure? Then you stop treating your reputation like a fragile vase and start treating it like a garden. A garden doesn't grow because you stare at it. It grows because you tend to it. You water it. You remove weeds. You give it light. You give it time. Your reputation grows the same way. You do good work. You communicate clearly. You keep your word. You correct mistakes. You treat people with respect. You stay composed. You don't gossip. You don't chase drama. You don't collapse under feedback. You become boring in the best way. Dependable. Dependable people rise. Not always fast, not always with fireworks, but steadily. And steady is what lasts. You've been chasing fast. Fast is intoxicating. Fast makes you feel alive. Fast makes you feel like you're finally catching up. But fast also makes you sloppy. Fast makes you reactive. Fast makes you impatient. Fast makes you cut corners and then panic later. So you learn slow. Slow is careful. Slow is thoughtful. Slow is deep. Slow is where mastery lives. Deep focus is slow at first. Deep work feels heavy at first. Sitting with one problem for an hour feels like punishment when you've trained your brain to hop every 30 seconds. But that discomfort is the doorway. That's the threshold. You cross it, and on the other side you find a different mind. A mind that can hold attention. A mind that can create. A mind that can solve. A mind that can write, build, design, lead, without constantly needing a new hit of novelty. And when you find that mind again, you will feel a quiet relief, like you've come home to yourself. That's what you're really craving. Not entertainment, not validation. Home. You've been homeless in your own attention. You keep leaving and leaving and leaving. So you practice staying. Staying with the task. Staying with the discomfort. Staying with the silence. Staying with the truth. Staying with your own mind long enough to shape it. Stay here. There's another thing you don't like admitting. You've been using chaos as camouflage. When your days are messy, you always have an excuse. When your schedule is random, you can always say, life happened. When your goals are vague, you can always say, I'm figuring it out. When your standards are inconsistent, you can always say, I'm doing my best. And you might be doing your best in the moment, but your momentary best is being sabotaged by your lack of structure. Structure would expose you. Structure would reveal what you actually do with your time. Structure would reveal how often you choose comfort over growth. Structure would reveal how many hours you hand away to distractions. And you're afraid of that reveal. Not because you're evil, because you don't want to face disappointment. You don't want to face the fact that some of your suffering has been optional, self-created, repeated. That's a hard truth. But it's also a liberating truth, because if you created it, you can change it. Not instantly, not perfectly, but gradually, deliberately. You create a daily skeleton, a morning that begins with intention, a work block that is protected, a time for communication that doesn't bleed into everything, a time for movement, a time for learning that turns into practice, a time for reflection, a bedtime that you respect. It doesn't have to be complicated. Complicated is just another way to avoid doing it. Simple is honest. Simple is sustainable. You're not trying to build a perfect day. You're building a repeatable day. Repeatable days build repeatable results. And results, real results, are what rebuild your self-image. Self-image is not built by affirmations. Self-image is built by evidence. You want to stop feeling like a fraud? Create evidence. You want to stop feeling weak? Create evidence. You want to stop feeling behind? Create evidence. Evidence is work completed. Evidence is promises kept. Evidence is you showing up. And when you have evidence, your mind stops arguing with you so much, because it can't. The proof is there. You did it. You're not a person who can't focus. You're a person who focused today. You're not a person who never finishes. You're a person who finished something this week. You're not a person who always procrastinates. You're a person who started before you felt ready. That's how the story changes. And the story needs to change because your current story is suffocating you. Your current story is full of labels you've glued to your forehead: lazy, inconsistent, undisciplined, scattered, unlucky, misunderstood, unmotivated. Those labels are not you. They are descriptions of past behavior, and behavior can change. But you keep wearing the labels like armor. You keep them because they protect you from expectation. If you call yourself undisciplined, then no one expects discipline. If you call yourself a mess, then no one expects order. If you call yourself unlucky, then no one expects responsibility. But you know what that armor costs? It costs you possibility. It costs you growth. It costs you respect. Drop it. It's heavy. You don't need it anymore. You can be accountable without being cruel to yourself. You can be honest without being hopeless. You can be strict with your standards and gentle with your mistakes. That combination is maturity. That combination is resilience. And resilience is not a dramatic comeback. It's repeated returning. Returning to the plan. Returning to the habit. Returning to the calm response. Returning to the work. Returning to gratitude. Returning to patience. Returning again and again until returning becomes your instinct. One more truth. You are not as trapped as you feel. You feel trapped because your attention is scattered, your sleep is inconsistent, your days are unplanned, your emotions are running the show, and your goals are vague. That's not a life sentence. That's a list of adjustable variables. Adjust them. You don't have to overhaul your whole life in one night. Overhauls fail. They rely on excitement. Excitement fades. You adjust one variable, then another. You choose a bedtime and protect it. You choose a morning start and protect it. You choose a work window and protect it. You choose a single priority and finish it. You choose a limit for social media and keep it. You choose a rule: no phone in bed, no phone in the first hour, no phone during deep work, no phone while you eat, no phone while you talk to someone you respect. Rules are not tyranny. Rules are freedom from constant decision fatigue. Rules make you calmer because you're not negotiating with yourself all day. You decide once and you follow through. And the first week will feel strange. Your hands will itch. Your mind will reach. You will feel that restless pull toward easy stimulation. Good. That's the habit losing power. Don't dramatize it. Don't fear it. Just notice it and return. Return to your breath. Return to the task. Return to the present. Return again. And while you're doing that, something else happens, something you didn't expect. Your emotions start to settle. Not because you fixed them, not because you forced them away, but because your nervous system finally senses stability. Chaos creates anxiety. Drift creates guilt. Inconsistency creates shame. Stability creates trust. Trust creates calm. Calm creates focus. Focus creates progress. Progress creates self-respect. Self-respect creates even more calm. It's a cycle. You've been living in the other cycle. Distraction creates delay. Delay creates regret. Regret creates shame. Shame creates avoidance. Avoidance creates distraction. You can break the cycle by interrupting it at the simplest point, the next choice, the next 5 minutes, the next hour. You don't need to win the entire week right now. You need to win this moment. You need to win the next decision. And you win it by doing the uncomfortable thing that aligns with your values. That's it. Not glamorous, not dramatic, effective. Effective is beautiful in a world full of performers. And don't misunderstand me. You can still be creative. You can still enjoy life. You can still laugh. You can still rest. You can still have warmth. Discipline doesn't remove joy. It protects joy. It protects joy from the chaos that drains you. It protects joy from the guilt that poisons your free time. It protects joy from the feeling that you should be doing something else. When you've done your work, rest becomes sweet. When you've kept your word, leisure becomes clean. When you've earned your evening, you can enjoy it without that anxious itch. You've been trying to relax without earning it, and that's why it never feels like relaxation. It feels like hiding. It feels like numbness. It feels like time leaking. So you earn it. You do the work first. You put in the focused block. You finish the meaningful task. You handle the responsibility you've been avoiding. You speak the hard truth you've been dodging, respectfully, calmly, directly. You send the email you've been postponing. You make the call. You organize the plan. You clean the mess you've been stepping around. You make your space reflect your standards. Space matters. Environment matters. A cluttered room is a loud room, and a loud room makes your mind loud. You're not weak for being influenced by your environment. You're human. Use that. Design your environment to support discipline. Put the easy distractions away. Put the tools of your craft within reach. Make the good habit frictionless. Make the bad habit inconvenient. You don't need to rely on heroic willpower. Heroes burn out. You need systems that quietly carry you. Systems carry you when you're tired. Systems carry you when you're stressed. Systems carry you when your emotions flare.